As more landowners discover the benefits of improving their deer habitat, it's not uncommon to be contacted by landowners who have been working on a habitat plan that was drawn up for them by someone, and then later wonder why it's not translating into more mature buck sightings during the hunting season. This was a case with a landowner on Washington Island off the tip of Door County, Wisconsin. He saw a lot of deer, but no opportunities at mature bucks. He worked hard on implementing his habitat plan by planting long food plot corridors, planting switchgrass with pockets of diversity, installing water holes, creating mock scrapes, adding tree stand locations, and doing some hinge cutting for bedding. When he contacted me this spring, he shared several photos of the main woodlot where he had done some hinge cutting according to the habitat plan. He wasn't sure if more cutting needed to be done. Would it help or hurt the situation? Regardless, he wasn't comfortable cutting the bigger trees, and I get it. It can be very intimidating taking down a 100-foot tree, especially hinge cutting. In most cases, it's better to just notch and fall huge trees because they're not going to successfully hinge anyway. But even that can be dangerous if you're not experienced at dropping trees. Since the woods was still pretty open with sight lines of over 100 yards, I told him I'd cut down a lot of the big trees to get more sunlight to the ground, do some more hinge cutting for bedding, and open up some deer trails that were blocked with deadfalls and trees that were hinged a couple years ago. The habitat plan just didn't call for enough of the overhead canopy to come down in his wide open woods. In several areas it looked like the only thing missing were picnic tables. When you have 40 acres and only half of that is open woods, you need to maximize as much of it for good deer cover as possible, especially if you don't need access trails going through the timber. The trees were already past their peak monetary value anyway, and there's no logger that's willing to come out to an island on a ferry to harvest just 20 acres of overly mature, low-value timber. So in early May, I took the 30-minute ferry ride to the island and spent a day and a half cutting and hinging trees and opening up deer trails in the bedding areas so they didn't feel restricted. The next morning, the deer were already in there, eating the leaves that were 100 feet up the day before. A couple months later, I returned to do the same thing in his other woodlot on the west side. I really liked this spot. The landowner had done some hinge cutting for bedding a couple years ago on some high ground next to his field with switchgrass and food plots. Along the west and south side was a long, narrow neck of woods between his food plot and the neighbor's field. This was a great opportunity to create an ambush pinch point with a tree stand at the corner of his property and with his access coming up the easement from the road to his west. In order to understand what this area looks like, here's a video clip I filmed after spending a day cutting trees to set up this spot. So it's July 1st today, and I am on a 40-acre piece here in Door County, Wisconsin. And the landowner had a habitat plan drawn up for him about 3-4 years ago, but it wasn't really translating into any big buck sightings. So he asked me to come in, do some hinge cutting, and maybe steer some deer, create some more bedding, and just create some more opportunities at mature bucks. So I was here about 2 months ago and did a lot of hinge cutting in his main woods, took down a lot of timber. Thought I'd fire up the video camera here and kind of give you a quick nickel tour of what had been done before and then what I just completed today. And then at the end of this video, I just want to show you the little couple of runways that the mature bucks are going to take right past his stand. And it's going to be tailor-made for that post-cold front with a north wind during the Halloween time frame while they're seeking. So I'm standing in a bedding area here that is just off to the south side of a big open field which has got food and switchgrass in it. And this little bedding area here is up on high ground. And I dropped down a bunch of trees, but mainly today I had to clean up a lot of the stuff that was hinge cut about 3 to 4 years ago. There was a lot of debris on the ground, as you can see here, and it was really hard for the deer to get through. They were using it, but it wasn't really a high value bedding area. There was a lot of hinge cutting done. There just wasn't a lot of detail work done after the hinge cutting was finished. So we had to make a lot of travel corridors through here. We had to blaze our way through with a chainsaw. We had to cut a lot of stuff out of the way. As you can see here, we had, a tree that was just blocking this right here that was leading out to the food plot over there. So we opened this up. We did a little edge feathering over there on the edge of the field. But then we came in here and we open this up a little bit, you can see we got a lot more blue sky. We're going to get a lot more sun in here now. But we've got some overhead cover here, some high overhead cover. We got a bed here, another bed there. We got a bed right here with a log behind it. And we just go through here. And we're just trying to create as much sunlight in here as we can. We got this over here was completely blocked. It was really tough for deer to get through, so we had to bust this open, get through here, pull a bunch of weeds and bushes out of the way, come in through here, and all this stuff was just all the way across the deer trail. So we had to clear this out. We got Hinge cut that little tree there. Now we got a little bedding pocket right in here. Now we can come through here. We had to clean some of this up. And then we had this really big maple that was leaning out toward the food plot, and was able to drop that thing. And the top of the tree is just on the edge of the where the food is and where the switchgrass is. So anyway, this is about as far east as they can go. And this is where they got to go out into the food plot. And now this is totally blocked off because we do not want deer to continue up on this high ground past a stand because it's out of bow range. So we're going to leave this as a mess. We actually did some more hinge cutting over there to the right side just to make sure that these deer cannot go through here. And so we're going to turn around and we're going to go back. And I'll go the other way through this bedding area and give you an idea of what the bedding area looks like as far as cover and aisleways. Because for bedding areas, if you cut a lot of trees and you don't open it up with aisleways and allow these deer to feel unrestricted, they're probably not going to use it very much. So we'll come through here. You can see we had some logs going across there that we had to open up. We had to throw a lot of debris off to the side. So it's pretty time consuming. You can see all the debris here we had to cut and throw off to the side, but now we can get through. We got a nice little spot here where they can bed up against the log. And I got about 3 or 4 little runways that come off this high bedding area that go down into the woods, into a little neck of open woods that leads right by his stand. But we're going to stay up here in this bedding area. We're going to continue on past his tree stand that he already had. We got a little aisleway going through here now that we had to clean up. We got another little aisleway going through here that they can get down into the hardwoods. A lot of cleanup required over there. Going through here, we got a water hole that he had in there for quite a while, a few years. This leads out to a hanging branch that he tied up for a scrape, but I don't see them scraping down here. But we had to clean this up a little bit leading out to the food plot. And so now these deer can come right down this aisleway. We have another aisleway right through here that the deer can go through. So we got like 2 or 3 areas that the deer can move through throughout this bedding area. There's another one underneath the golden arches. So we're going to go down here into the hardwoods. We had to move some of this stuff out of the way. You can see we had to cut some logs and move some stuff. He's got a beech tree that hung up so deer can walk underneath. So now we get into the hardwoods here. And this is just a neck that's only about 30 to 35 yards wide. And it runs for a long ways between his neighbor's field over here, out in the distance, and the food plot that's on the other side of the bedding area, which is up on high ground. So this neck of mature hardwoods runs right past his stand. There's already a trail running through here. And by the time this deer trail runs by his tree stand, it's pinched down pretty good. The deer only have two ways to go past the stand. One at about 8 yards and one at about 15 yards. So you can see from the hardwoods, you look up into the bedding area, we got a lot of blue sky. We got a lot of timber brought down today. We cleaned up some areas for deer to move through. And so now when the deer lay up in that bedding area up on high ground, they can't see down into the open hardwoods as well, because we got a lot of screening here now. We took down a lot of trees right on the edge and dropped them into the bedding area. So this is kind of like the hard edge that goes along the bedding area. You can see we got another way to get up into the bedding area right there. And so now the deer are going to have to walk down this trail to get to the other side of this food plot. So we're going to walk right by my chainsaw here, but this is on the deer trail. You can see they cannot get through here on the left side. This is a total barricade. They have to go through here. Now we're getting closer to the neighbor's field as well. We're probably only about 25 yards. So these deer are absolutely going to stick to this trail. So now the deer got a choice. They can go through here, and by the way, this big maple right there, the big double, his ladder stand is going to be in that tree there. He's got some pines around him, conifers, that's going to hide him a little bit, even during the late season, right? Because it's a conifer. So that deer can walk down that trail, or he can walk down this trail. It's about 15 yards away from the tree. We had to open this a little bit. We had a lot of debris on the ground. Cut some logs out of the way. And right here, I opened it up so that's a clear shot right to that tree at 15 yards. And halfway between here and the tree is another trail that the deer can walk through. So he's got two choices. And if he does not have an opportunity in that shooting lane, then as the deer comes around all this debris that's steering him in front of the stand for another shot, you can see a trail goes around that field over there of the neighbors and continues over to the south. But as he gets right here, there's the big maple right there in the middle. He's got another shot there. And there's the other corridor that's near the tree that the deer can go down. So they're being pinched right down into here. You can see the field edge over there through the woods. That's about 40 yards away. And the neighbor's field right here is only about 20 yards away. So the best time for the landowner to hunt this stand is going to be with a north wind, preferably on a post-cold front, starting in the last week of October, and then for about a 2 to 3 week period while those mature bucks are seeking hot estrus does. With a north wind, they're going to be able to scent check that food plot there to the north and the bedding area. The scent's going to come down here into the open hardwoods, and as the buck passes by, he'll be able to scent check all those beds and the food plot and pass right by that tree. And he'll be coming into that stand from the back side, from that field over there, because he has an easement coming from the road that's on the west side of the property.
Now, since the landowner has not been able to get a response from the guy who drew up his habitat plan, we've talked on the phone and texted back and forth a few times to answer a few of his questions. Just a few days ago, he sent me this text to say that there are deer bedding all over for the first time, and they're using the new bedding area to the west pretty good and already going by the new stand. He also learned that those deer trails need to be more open and clear. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to see more buck activity this fall. I asked him to share any good trail cam photos with me and any photos of him holding a nice set of antlers. If he does, I'll post a follow-up video later this year. So be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video.